live from count 'em, three locations.
This is Past the Rock.
I am Patrick, and as always, I am joined by two great men, Caesar, aka LCs.
What's up, everybody? You know, I'm just here, the resident host with the team that's still trucking and fucking in the playoffs.
I'm pretty sure that football is just done now, actually. And to confirm that, I have Jacob, aka Bethke.
Football's been dead for a week, brother.
Probably longer.
Yeah, we'll get to some of that. Obviously, a big part of what's going to happen today, for better or worse. But I'm going to distract myself with some other stuff first. Obviously, the big story this week, just like it was last week, wildfires in LA. I think as of today, which is Wednesday, they had a better day today, or maybe yesterday, than they were expecting. So maybe, I don't know. I didn't really keep up with containment numbers, but
the wind is still kicking, which is still the biggest negative. So that's really not great. You got a lot of postponements of sporting events around still. So that's, I don't know, maybe a good sign, maybe a bad sign.
Spurs and Lakers played though, so I guess not. I don't know. I haven't looked at the maps and how everything is set up, but so yeah, that's just something that's going to keep being a story for a couple of weeks at least. Just thought we'd mention it. I don't think there's anything really new or breaking on it, but it's obviously just the thing happening.
9 games rescheduled for the NBA people, at least.
Yeah, and we had a playoff football game that got moved that we'll talk about later. I'm sure other stuff. Probably, I don't know what was affected NHL wise. Maybe not much if there were 9 NBA games in there, but I'll look into that here in a second. What else? Oh yeah, Denton man arrested in Indianapolis for stalking. I don't know what the actual charge is. Harassing, stalking Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, I mean, I think it might have been a little more than that, but yeah,
there were definitely weird texts and DMs, and
yeah. Today he also went viral for his reaction to the judge in their initial hearing, where he sat down and was like, guilty.
Yeah, and that's as women's sports become more prevalent, you're definitely more likely to see more things like that happen than you might in the other direction. For whatever reason, it seems the numbers seem to play out that way. Yeah,
felony stalking is the charge. Felony stalking
can't be good. I don't have a lot of details on that. I just thought it hit pretty close to home here, and it's obviously a big news story. So,
yeah, I honestly never really saw the rest of the details. It's always kind of thumbing through some of this too.
Don't stalk people. That's my take.
Yeah. And she's already had another one of these, or no.
I mean, Angel, I'm sure a lot of them have them. This is just one that's gotten far enough for us to know about it, you know?
Well, yeah, but as far as getting to the point of being arrested, not her, the maybe potential future Dallas wing, Paige Buckets. Yeah, she was the first that I've seen of this like recent group. I'm sure this has happened before, unfortunately, in other situations along history. But yeah, this is same. Yeah, looks like he was. Yeah, I mean, he's a real nefarious looking fella. Looks like he could be a cousin of Trevor from the GTA 5 game. You know,
it's not a good comp. You don't. That's not what you want on your draft profile.
No, it was tough. Yeah, he looked like your stereotypical guy who probably belongs under somebody's supervision permanently, potentially.
Well, oh god, I don't like that. Okay, we'll keep an eye. Like I said, this could be a thing now that women's sports are getting more and more popular. Something that we actually hear about more. Mm-hmm. The closest thing I can think of in male sports is Steve McNair, and that wasn't even a stalking situation. So,
oh no, Steve McNair. Yeah, I guess that we didn't even know that there was any extracurricular with him. It was just one day Steve McNair was just dead.
Yeah, the public probably was less aware. Obviously, if you watch the the one documentary that just came out about it. Seems like everyone else knew about it around him, but
Yeah. At that time, it would have been the late 2000s when he passed away.
it was like 09, 10 maybe.
It
Yeah,
was the same year Michael Jackson died. I remember that.
Sounds like a
so maybe
2009.
the 2011, maybe just started 2010s. Or maybe it was, yeah, maybe it was
2009, I think.
Yes,
just
2009.
on outlets to get to everybody.
Can you say that again? Sorry.
Just few enough online outlets to get to people.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, since we're sports guys, we heard about that pretty quick. So,
Yeah, I mean his death, but then the details. I feel like I didn't know about the real details of this and how awful that was until a few, maybe even years later, and then now we have a documentary that I feel like has filled in all the blanks.
Well, there's that. And that's probably the end of our downer news for
Okay,
the day.
but let's bring it back up by talking about how Mark Wahlberg has a movie where I guess he's on a plane or something and trying to save people.
Have you seen he's bald?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly what just distracted the shit out of me.
Entirely unnecessary. Like
it's not just bald. Like this man has
it
got
looks CGI bald.
Oh my god!
Isn't he supposed to be the villain in that movie? Because they did not play him off as a hero.
I only have seen the trailer without sound on, so I couldn't really tell you.
Yeah, dude, he's trying to save Topher Grace.
It took me a long time to figure out it was Marky Mark, though, until I saw a shot of him with a hat on and it was covering the bald, and I was like, "Oh, it's exactly Marky Mark."
There's nothing Marky Mark can do to fool me.
So from what I'm gathering from everybody's understanding, if he is trying to save people, y'all remember that quote he had where he was like, "I was on that plane, 9/11 wouldn't happen."
Yeah.
He's like, "What if I made that into a movie?"
Well, I think he was supposed to be on the one that went down in Pennsylvania, right? And he was saying we would have gotten there and stopped that from happening. I don't remember.
Well, I don't care. Regardless of that lore, I would still like to see that be the way he went into the movie and the way everyone sold him on the movie. And then I would love to see him seriously have his PR team pitch him as an Oscar nominee.
Okay.
I think it's okay if we all play a public prank on Mark Wahlberg.
He's been playing on there's a joke here. He's been playing one on Us Forever, something like that. There's something there. I'm not going to think of it right now.
I mean, look, some people would argue that he's been in enough positive things that it weighs out the negative. And I would say that's debatable.
He's kind of Cage-like to me, where it's like the movie really matters. Like
yeah, but Nick Cage is
the tone of the movie matters.
Nick Cage is a man of the people. There's a great quote that I hope is not fabricated at this point, but allegedly a Playboy interview where he's like, they're asking about how serious he takes making the money he's making when he was at his prime, and he was like, I don't think money's a laughing matter. I have respect for the dollar. I would hope that that's a real quote. I've seen it for a long time. That quote being popped around the internet feels like it's as old as the internet. But yeah, Nick Cage is a true thespian. I mean, he's going to do the most ridiculous thing because he's going to go out there. Mark Wahlberg, it's just like, how are you still how are you still doing this? How have you survived disaster after disaster after disaster after disaster after disaster?
He's been in plenty of good movies.
That's the crazy part. It's like, people love the other guys. That's a great one. He's not like one of the main people.
Departed.
Yeah, he's not one of the main characters in Departed, but he's arguably the most important.
I would say he's one of the main.
Not like screen time.
Oh no, you're right. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. I was mixing up.
He's a vital part of the movie, but he's not the screen time. Like
Wasn't
screen time is probably super low.
Isn't he in I Heart Huckabees? Get you a little indie feel for him.
I guess so. I mean, obviously he started
I think he's playing a firefighter.
He started out.
It's not a joke. It's just what he does all the time.
What's the movie where he's the porno star?
Oh, Boogie Nights.
Boogie Nights.
Anderson. He's great in that movie.
So yeah, so I mean, he's not like he's done enough in Hollywood to get himself recognized historically. I think that's fair. But starts off with a hate charge, then he's replicating and just basically jacking black culture and selling it to white people because they don't know enough about it. The other side of the fence yet. At this point, everyone's, the government may not be doing things, but the people are still doing things that divide the cultural plains of America.
One bunch, baby.
Yeah, and so you have. I was explaining that whole the Beastie Boys. I used to give them too much shit as a kid, but Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch and the all of that group and the new kids on the block, all of them, they deserve a lot of just parody.
So I think you should be mad at the record companies that made them, not the
yes,
performers.
No, you're
who were probably actually passionate about what they were doing to some degree.
It's like when I say Drake creates a song, or Drake, I'm not necessarily just referring to Aubrey Graham, the individual. I am referring to the entity that is Drake.
It's like, I don't get mad at Elvis. It's not his fault.
No,
he made his money. What are you gonna do?
Elvis does kind of suck for other things though, so it's easier.
Marrying your 14-year-old or something, not a big deal.
There's a lot of ways you could go about it with Elvis.
We could find out in court if you call someone a pedophile in a song, if that counts as defamation. So that's potentially upcoming.
That's the beauty of the law. Answer the questions that need to be answered. Solve mankind's woes.
A tease for a story that may actually never matter. We'll find out. And then the next little bit I want to get into is we got some news. Two pieces of news from the Texas Rangers this week. One, we are not going to land Sasaki, the Japanese second next phenom. Looks like he's either going to end up in San Diego with his boy Yu Darvish, in LA, where why wouldn't you? Or Toronto is still in the mix, I believe. So who knows? And I don't think Seattle has been officially ruled out either, and that also makes sense for the market. So
I think they're being racist, but that's okay.
Well, there's a lot of connection there, like business wise as well, and sponsor wise. And
let's be honest. Yu Darvish, he's Yu Darvish's good pal, right?
Yes. Well, yeah, I think he looks up to Darvish is the way it's.
Yu Darvish told him,
if you're not going to sign with me, go to Seattle.
No, he told him. He was like, look, bro, everything about Texas is awesome. They even fixed the stadium. See what, they haven't fixed that one problem. He's like, oh, say less. All right, never mind. So they don't know any, like, they don't want to come out here and try THCA. They don't want to come out here and try boof. They want to have CBD herbs and spices at the local mini mart.
Can't blame anyone.
They want the real. They want to walk in, have to show somebody with like a badge and a gun potentially, or just a regular employee, their ID, and buy copious amounts of real legal product.
That was a weird thing when I went to Denver. Is none of the places I went in had like armed security, but everyone before I went was like, "Get ready." They got.
Did you go to the High Times in like the downtown area part?
Probably not.
That one was wild. So you walk in and they have like, you're at the base level. It's like 3 stories and it's really small and narrow, and it's just a shop. So you just buy a bunch of fucking High Times shirts, High Times, swag, blah, blah, blah.
Is that where the magazine is like produced?
No, I don't know. But I know that they have a store there. The store looked fairly generic, not historic necessarily. Could be. Anyway, you go in there and then you give your ID and say what's up, and they're like, you shop in here, you're trying to go upstairs. And
LA.
You're like, I'm trying to go upstairs. So then, you go up this elevator and then you wait in the hallway until, there's just, because there's only a certain amount of people allowed in the actual little shop area. Right. You got a little waiting area too, so you can sit there on the couch in case, it's that busy. And then they just, one at a time, you walk in there and you're like, all right, what you need, what you got.
Oh, dang. You know what sucks is it's right next to the indoor mini golf place I went to. I should have stopped in there.
Oh yeah.
Didn't know it was there.
I stumbled upon it and it was lovely.
No, I went to a few more close to where we were staying in the neighborhood that I already forgot what it's called. But anyways, that's the news on the Rangers not getting Sasaki.
And that's exactly why it didn't happen. We have a reliable source. You heard it here first. Change the laws, the Texas Rangers could win all of the titles.
More titles. And then another better Ranger news this week. They announced that they will be joining Victory Plus, the Stars streaming platform. We just heard a couple hours ago. It sounds like it's going to be $100 annual subscription. So you're getting about 150 games at under $1 a piece.
Produce some decent other content as well, and I feel like I'm okay with that.
And they've done a good job with the Stars stuff, so I just assume it'll kind of be a carbon copy for the Rangers a little bit, as far as condensed games and stuff like that, and a couple of special features that I haven't really watched because
look, I'm
not for me.
Having to plan a wedding, so budgeting is getting a little different for at least a little bit. I'm going to cancel YouTube TV until the NBA playoffs at least, and then maybe even by then I might be looking at different alternatives just to give me that, because
it's even tough now because I don't know, does YouTube TV even carry all the different things that NBA playoff games will be on?
It will still, yeah. YouTube TV.
They don't have Prime.
That's the one thing
NBA
I have
playoff
to say.
Games yet.
So, okay. So I don't think Prime is on that one. So that's where next year it's going to get wonky. And that's what I was going to say is, well, we already have Peacock. We're already paying for Max. We're not going to get rid of those because we do those with like the big family plans. So that's easy for us to. We barely pay anything on that comparatively, right? So it's like, okay, maybe I can just piece this together. And then you're like, okay, how do I watch the Cowboys now? Is basically the question, or the Rangers. And it's like, I think that it's interesting how obviously all of these things have pushed us to a point where it's like, what do I really prioritize? Maybe if it's going to be, I will say $100 a month is essentially how I view it. It's like $90 realistically for YouTube TV.
Yeah.
But I look at it just like a clean $100 a month. It's not a bad service. Like, I really would argue it's a great service. I love it for news and sports, right? But honestly, I can get all of the news, PBS NewsHour, CBS that I watched, the Face the Nation stuff, the local Texas stuff that we have that people produce, like that is more about local politics or local community stuff. All of that basically gets posted to YouTube now as well, for free. And I think that's the other thing is, like, a package like that, it's like premium. YouTube Premium should come with it if I'm paying I'm paying basically $100. So because all these other things exist, it's easier for me to swallow the $100 fee that maybe me as the consumer can put on my credit card and think, oh, how much is that, a month, whatever. I watch a lot of Rangers baseball, or this will help me have the condensed games. It'll, so if I only have 20 minutes to catch up on last night's game that was in Oakland, or not, well, I guess, sorry.
Sacramento, I think.
Sacramento. Well, I guess Seattle's probably a better one to use. So if the Rangers are playing in Seattle, boom, I'm not staying up till 1 a.m. potentially. So it's nice because that's really the thing about YouTube TV. Also, you have everything recorded. You have everything.
I do like the DVR stuff of Fubo, but Fubo doesn't carry TNT or the Turner stuff, so then I miss out on a lot of things that way.
And maybe that's a good option because we have the other package, but it's like, I still think these things are all so comparable.
No, and yeah, a lot of people pay their Fubo, YouTube TV, or cable just so that they can watch the Rangers. So if you can, essentially cut that down to cut that down to 1/12 of the cost for you over the year. It's a good thing. So that's fun. I like that I'll have the Rangers and the Stars on one app. I'm surprised the Mavs didn't get in on that, but I think they're yeah. I think they're still kicking things around. I think part of the reason the Stars are able to do free, at least right now, and the Rangers aren't, is because the NHL makes way less money from TV deals and stuff like that. They get way more money from the gate than the MLB teams do. We'll see if the Stars continue their free model, even with the Rangers as a paid add-on later.
Yeah, I think the Stars are always probably going to eventually put a price tag, even if it's just something simple.
But it's nice to know that kind of gives you an idea that the Rangers are still trying to maintain having a salary that isn't terrible for the team. They're still trying to compete.
Oh, yeah.
Because if they did just offer it for free, then that might be like we have no intention of signing anybody.
Yeah, no, that means Kirby Yates. Let's come on back in.
I sure damn hope so. So that's it for the Rangers. Really quick check in on the Stars. They've been playing better.
Power play.
It's looking a little bit better. It's looking a little
All right,
bit.
we'll
It's looking okay. Even an overtime power play goal, which is like the rarest of the rare, it seemed. So,
Clutch.
we got an update on Sagan's still going to be like 5 to 6 more weeks, which sucks. He's coming back from another hip surgery, so even in the playoffs, not sure how, what percent of him is even going to be able to do anything. It does mean, as I mentioned, if we put him on that long-term injured reserve, we get to use his cap space for the rest of the season. So that would be ideal. Trade deadline is February 6th or 9th, right after the Four Nations tournament, which we'll get into at a different point, not necessarily right now, maybe the week between
the Four Nations.
Between the conference championship game and the Super Bowl or something. We'll have a little time to touch on that.
Does the winner get Greenland?
One funny and sad thing of it, not funny, but one sad thing is Russia doesn't get to get included. So obviously,
it's sad for the Russian people.
It's sad for the people, the players. It's, you don't get the 4 best teams in the world because of that. So, anyways, that's what's kind of going on with the Stars. Not a whole lot new. They're still winning games. So is Winnipeg. So they haven't gained any ground as far as the best team in the NHL, who's the one above them, basically. So the Stars, if they put them in the East right now, I think they'd be second place overall. But in the West, they're like a game up on a wild card spot. Just to give you some context. But things are looking good. That'll progress and continue. I just think it'll keep going like it has been, and then we'll see how it plays out in the playoffs. And then I'll do a little mini transition here as we go on to some hoopity hoops.
Transition. Oh. Give this podcast a listen.
I'm really just jealous of you because we didn't get that kind of snow in Dallas proper.
Oh, dude, I had several inches of snow to play with, at least for one day.
Man, some places in Dallas did.
How did yours look?
Not like that, but where my mom works, definitely looked like that.
Damn, bro. Yeah, no, the medical district kind of was lame. I don't even know if we got a full half inch of snow.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, maybe half inch.
The medical district, I feel like there's a lot of cars coming in and out of there. It won't let anything, pile up.
No, and I feel like on the roads that's fair, but even just around in the
parking
there's
lots.
So we're across the street from Southwestern, and Southwestern has plenty of little nature area and stuff because it's college campus so as well. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of places for snow to accumulate and not be driven upon, but it just didn't stick like that. We got rained on a lot after.
Pretty sure we had 3 inches of snow by 8 a.m. up here.
Yeah, no, I was so mad. I was looking at it and I was like, fuck. It's just, it was everything north of us is just about to have a merry fucking white ass.
It's been a while since I've been north of the lake. I forgot how that worked.
And it's been a while.
But that is, I'll use that to quick tease. There's a 3-minute cut of me playing golf in the snow in my backyard. Mostly just smoking cigarettes is what I want. It's what I gained. What I learned by editing that was smoking cigarettes for sure. But now, this week in hoops.
Hoopity hoops.
Today we're gonna do our trade market analysis. Okay, we're gonna break down all kinds of shareholders, stocks, and all kinds of investor news for you guys here. Okay.
Who's this character?
I don't have the energy for what's the guy that does the Mad Money?
It's not Jim Cramer.
Jim Cramer. Ah, mother. Yeah,
I just saw the clip on 30 Rock where Elizabeth Banks is on there, and it's just him yelling in the background with two people in bear costumes pushing her back and forth.
That's the kind of energy we should have for this sort of thing. Trade deadline looms. Yeah. Oh, this is the 15th. Today is a very important day.
1 month.
No, it's actually February the 6th.
Uh-oh. Did I mix up the NBA and NHL trade deadlines earlier?
It's very possible. The 15th means that as of today, I believe, maybe tomorrow.
Oh, March 7th for the NHL. So we got another full month and a half.
So potentially for everybody now, except for a few, some of the people who have signed their big like rookie extensions or whatever, they are ineligible to be traded for this season. Like Jalen Green in Houston is going to be a big example of this. Unfortunately for them, it will kind of pigeonhole their teams a little bit into what moves they can make and what they can't make. Ultimately, though, they this is the time where basically everybody can do any move that they want. All the trade pieces are on the board now. From this point to the 6th, all the real possible deals you can cook up on a trade machine are viable for the most part. That really all centers around Jimmy Butler. I kind of based a lot of my little bullets and points here on popular trade machines players. If you look at the trade machine, I use Fanspos, and you kind of see all the trending players. You'll see why I picked the things I picked. And then once we'll get to the bottom here, the Spurs and the Mavs will wrap this up because that's what we follow on a regular basis. The Jimmy Butler saga is the biggest thing that's been happening. It's been happening for a while. He's asked out. We found out that they didn't pay him for like a week or something on accident because of some payroll stuff. Pat Riley has been already said that he was regretful of how he's handled it, but who knows if that's just a ploy or if reality at this point. They're going to up his suspension to where he'll have to get fined more because they're no longer basically giving him, cover via away from team rules. They're basically going to call it not wanting to render services, DNPs essentially moving forward, which would up his
doubles the fines, I believe is what I heard, or essentially doubles them.
Interesting things. The other stuff we've known reported about this saga, Phoenix Suns are heavily involved. As I've mentioned last week, they want him. He wants them. Here's the problem. They only have one way to do it. It's to get a guy who makes $50 million to say yes to a trade that he can veto.
They don't want to try to get a fourth max player on the Suns roster.
They literally can't. So they would love
to keep
going
over the.
They can't just keep going anymore. No, they've lost their privileges to keep going. So yeah.
You're telling me if Ish just wants to throw $1 billion at the league, they won't let him.
Well, you could, I think, but I think you would have to. You'd have to draft or acquire the player, like the bird rights to every player, like Boston has, where essentially they've been able to maintain the bird rights to their entire core.
So, yeah, you need KP. Someone who's been on the same team their whole career.
Yeah,
he's a max player.
So yeah, that's the hard part. Yeah, so it's difficult. Phoenix just made a move today to get Nick Richardson. They just moved Josh Okogie's money basically in picks. Okogie is a solid, interesting player. Who knows if he stays or goes? Obviously, Charlotte's just trying to establish anything at this point. For the Suns, I think that's a solid player, but a flawed one as well. They still most likely get rid of Nurkic and then probably keep Beal. But Jimmy Butler, I guess, could eventually force his way to the Suns like he wants. Although it also does say, there also has been reporting that says that Jimmy Butler's already both sides are already sort of expecting him to come back and to accept the player option for next year, perhaps knowing his value may not be where it wants to be. But regardless of all of that,
those couples who just like get in loud public fights at the bar, but then still end up getting married later.
It's just Jimmy and anybody he's dating essentially so far this in his career, and maybe Miami is the one he finally marries. You're right. Maybe it is finally that situation. Well, we know that the Grizzlies tried to make a deal for him. And in fact, we know that if he wanted it, he most likely would be playing for the Memphis Grizzlies right now.
Probably a number of teams, I would think, but a lot of them know not to even try because he doesn't want to. So,
and that's why I wanted to market analysis this. Like I said, I've told you guys all the facts. We most likely believe Jimmy Butler is staying with the Miami Heat, and that they have, and then he's basically going to walk into the same amount of money next year.
Is this some kind of money laundering scheme to get his fines washed through the team?
I mean, that would be fun. I would like to see anybody try anything they can try.
Like Riley and Butler have been selling arms, and they got to get the money back through somehow. So
this is a plot of a movie potentially. What if that's all this season is to the Miami Heat? What if they're trying to galaxy brain Jerry Jones, and instead of, just trying to pretend like they're playing for a season, they just all the actual basketball we're watching is just an illusion while they pull off a great movie.
It's the plot of Now You See Me 3 or whatever.
Okay, so Memphis, like I said, I mean, Memphis would have probably given them a really nice package, or would have also gotten other packages in their face when it comes to getting some money back for this Jimmy Butler deal. But that's not going to happen. So we know the parameters. I don't care. I still gave them a couple of teams to talk about so that at least you can survive rumor season a little bit better. The Orlando Magic, could there be a Florida interstate trade? The Magic would be in an interesting position to do so. It would make them interestingly deep at the wing because you wouldn't give up Franz or Paulo. But maybe Jimmy, his point guard, is moving around, could be better in that situation. The easy part is they can move Jonathan Isaac, Cole Anthony. That's a lot of money and valuable, still useful players for Miami. And then they can just throw in cheap roster guys and picks to make it work. But my guess is Jimmy Butler is not trying to sign with the Magic.
Doesn't want that Disney money. They're not still owned by Disney, are they?
No, sponsored, not owned. They're owned by the Duval family, the Betsy Duval.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I think the Anaheim Ducks are the only ones that have ever been owned by Disney proper.
I thought the Magic had Disney involved in the ownership when it was founded.
There's potential that they did, and it still do in some ways, but its majority is the Duval family. The other ones that are in this category is the Magic, the Pistons, and the Hawks. The Hawks would have to make
that sounds like a Jimmy Butler team. Has he ever played there before?
Which one?
The Hawks.
The Hawks. No, and actually, I would argue that would be a good deal because they can kind of maneuver it where they only have to give up one player they probably like a lot to get it done. But I do wonder if that just doesn't fit where they're actually are at in their timeline. I just put them in because I think it makes more sense than people realize or are thinking about. They're not usually the team people think of a lot. But I do sneaky wonder. They also have an issue with their assets because of the Spurs DeJounte trade. So it's not like a perfect partner if the price was to get high, but the price isn't high and he's willing to go there. I could see it working. Pistons, it's also, they're sort of in the play-in hunt right now, and they're better than everyone thought. Cade Cunningham's looking like a superstar. So do you go ahead and get Jimmy Butler while he's fairly cheap and then pay him when he's older, but your good players are young and cheap relatively? That's potentially not a bad option for the Pistons moving forward. They would just have to get rid of Tim Hardaway Jr. and Isaiah Stewart essentially for money purposes. So the price may even be more affordable and palatable for them than anyone else. So the Pistons are a sneaky team I would like to see. Jimmy Butler also really fits some of the aura that Detroit basketball has been in the past. The Oklahoma City Thunder, they're going to get named a lot because they have all the picks in the world. They're potentially knocking on the door of a title in hopes of maybe being a dynasty along with Boston, or at least being a rival team to Boston's dynasty. Perhaps they need to grow up a little bit, and that'll be useful. As Caesar was so intimidated by the Oklahoma City Thunder that he left.
I don't know how that happened.
It's okay. The Oklahoma City Thunder are not coming for you right now, Caesar. Although our heads now progressively get bigger. I like it. You've raised up now, so. So yeah, Thunder, an interesting one. The Rockets are an easy one to throw in there because Tomball, Texas isn't too far away from Houston. They're a young team that would need a veteran to sort of accelerate where they're at. I think there's still 2 or 3 in the conference right now. Probably one of those 2 or 3 seeds that you're not super scared of at this point. Maybe they would like to trade for a guy and make it scary. And then this trade is probably the most clickbaity one, but I think it is one that would be interesting nonetheless. What if Daryl Morey, the mad lad that he is, seeing what Philly's 15-23, they're trying their hardest right now to beat New York. New York doesn't even have Karl-Anthony Towns right now. Is it possible that Paul George, not even half a season into his contract with the Sixers, gets flipped for Jimmy Butler? So Jimmy Butler can go back to the team that should have never got rid of him in the first place, I guess, depending on how you view history there.
That would be an interesting move for all parties involved.
Well, there's also an element of, for Philadelphia, just what do they do with this season? Do they punt on it altogether because they still maintain their pick if they're that bad? Or do they not try to pass on? I mean, they don't have Joel tonight, obviously that's important, but they have the rest of the crew, so you would still want to see and feel like there's an attempt that they can do even better. So, they're not far out. I mean, they're 11th in the East, but 15-23 in the Eastern Conference. Just being close, the closer you get to 500, the closer you get to being in the playoffs for the East. That's usually the golden rule in a year, but especially this year.
I saw something interesting today on the basketball subreddit. So currently of the 30 first-round picks, 16 of them are owned by 6 teams.
Yeah, I mean, this is about time where all these people who have started following this pick order mentality are
they're all stacked. Yeah, I think the Thunder are still using Paul George picks, right?
Yeah, I mean, all of those. There's still plenty of those that are just now starting to really turn into
that's wild,
incredible potential picks. Yeah, I mean,
and this is supposed to be a stronger draft than last year, right?
Yeah, no, this year is crazy.
Yeah.
We've called it capture the flag, but he's not even a lock for number 1 still.
Interesting. I'm just looking at the Spurs I'm like, how can we make a 3-way trade where Jimmy Butler goes somewhere and we get the number 1 pick?
Well, I don't think I can cook something like that up for you, but I do have the Spurs in mind. Before I get to the Spurs, I wanted to bring myself to laugh at basically, again, I aggregated some of this stuff, not to go too long-winded on it mostly, but because I thought it's always funny to see who's constantly being traded in the little fan trader machine, right? I love that they put that data at the top. It's always the Lakers.
Like top trending trade piece.
Yeah, the players that are always traded the most. Yeah, they've always got that on there. Always Lakers involved. Doesn't matter. Good Lakers, bad Lakers team, always the Lakers up there. But the Warriors also have some sneaky suggestions up there. It's just difficult because there's a lot more ways you can make trades for them. So there's a lot of other guys getting traded. It's not just Gabe Vincent and Rui Hachimura trade machine 1,000 times over again. But I do think both of these fan bases are fighting for something. I've been saying this is a narrative for a while. Maybe it plays out in the next off season. Maybe it plays out this trade deadline. We don't know. But the Lakers and the Warriors are battling for trade deadline hope. Both teams desperately need it. The Warriors can mix and match trades in so many different ways, but they're going to be cheap when it comes to spending because I think the ownership knows that they can't do anything with the last part of Steph Curry's career, and they just don't want him to leave. The Lakers made a good move for Dorian Finney-Smith. Has not really paid off yet in the win column. Thinks that's been attributable to many things. Their coach losing his house in a fire, certainly not, nothing. The city, whoever else has been involved in that, obviously we realize that's a big burden to play with. But more or less, it feels like a team that, even as LeBron said, LeBron was on the Kelsey Brothers podcast, having a great time.
Yeah,
you go watch the Lakers game, he's not having any fun.
I saw them show that tweet where the guy was like, LeBron's 30, at least he'll be done soon.
And he made a joke like he's going to play till he's 50.
I mean, why not
try?
Well, we will see.
Unless one of the ligaments or bones just completely explode.
We shall see. Yeah, so
what else is he going to do? Can you imagine LeBron in a studio?
I would be impressed with him if he thinks that he can.
Maybe he'll finally get to the second page of that book.
If he's really gotten his thing down to where he doesn't think that'll put him in a wheelchair the second that he's done, I will be impressed.
Yeah, I can't imagine he hasn't seen Kawhi over the last 5 years and thought maybe I should stop before that gets me.
No,
I mean, everybody's different, but man, yeah. I mean, he I know he probably does all the right things over and over again and never breaks, but still, it's tough. Yeah. So Lakers, Warriors, they're both going to try to do whatever they can. Ultimately, though, I think for the Lakers, there's not enough desire / money fits for them to make a move for a third star and stay competitive with at least how I feel this, especially the star market is panned out. So I didn't even think about putting either of these teams in the Jimmy Butler news because it doesn't really feel like either of these teams have what it takes or even should trade for Jimmy Butler. I wouldn't put Phoenix in the category for the same reasons, but they're the ones putting themselves in it. So, good luck, Ishiba, Ishbia, whoever you are. But yeah, ultimately, I don't really know where they go from there. But I do expect both franchises and fan bases to be desperately trying to pull off a little trade that masks how futile the whole season is all in all, probably. And then potentially sets up the LeBron Steph Curry reunion, Golden State, Los Angeles, question mark city. I'm just saying they're old timers. What else are they gonna do? If they're gonna keep hooping, you don't think they're gonna force their way on the same
Why don't
team?
they come play with Chris Paul? He's got a nice little situation going on down here.
I honestly wouldn't rule anything out, no matter what.
Wemby, Paul, LeBron.
I wouldn't rule out a lot of
and
things.
Stephon Castle. That's a good starting five.
My guess is that the Spurs are going to want to look at the future for a long time and not for a short time. So don't feel like the Spurs would do that.
Haven't won a title in 10 whole years, Jacob.
Well, there could be a lot of titles coming if they play the patient game right, for sure. Speaking of the Spurs, will they be buyers? They're doing all right.
I think having all of those picks makes you a lot more able to do things. Like, even if, you know what I mean? Like, you're not as dependent on where you're at in the standings.
And I have two guys making decent money that I don't necessarily want around moving forward, and Zach Collins and Trey Jones. Maybe Trey Jones. I'm not mad at Trey Jones staying. Zach Collins, I'm like, yeah, you got to go. You got to go. You got to go. What do I do with them? Do I package them with picks and get something kind of nice? Do I package him with Trey Jones money and picks and try to get something pretty nice? Do I package him with Malachi Branham, Blake Wesley, some of these guys that are going to be considered like good contract reclamation project picks, sort of guys who just haven't exactly shown San Antonio enough to invest in long term, but other teams might value them with a specific role with a good manageable contract. So that's where I would be looking at the team to buy in. I would support them buying in because I think you're too good at this point to bottom out. So if you're going to be in the play-in, you might as well give Wemby the best shot to throw punches while he's in there, because that's good for morale. That's good for doing free agency stuff if you want to do that, if it's even possible. I think the Spurs really don't need to even get rid of a lot of their ability to draft high in the draft just because of all the assets they retain. I think they can go out and get a guy if they like him a lot, or they can go out and get a pick that they might give them a better shot to get a guy. So I don't think they're going to have to worry about the problem that like Dallas had, where they sort of got good too fast and then blew all their assets on one guy when then they kind of got stuck in a position for a few years.
It's also just a entirely differently ran organization than what Mark Cuban had going on.
Well, to some extent it is, but it's also a different NBA, and at this point, a different project when it comes to Victor Wembanyama, and feeling like the responsibility and burden of seeing what his greatness and ability is through, and then figuring out the next coach in line as that unfolds, however it's going to unfold. And so, I don't know. We will see. But Spurs definitely don't want to bail on all the picks just for this market. I think definitely not like a Jimmy Butler or a Brad Beal, obviously. I don't really think that maybe De'Aaron Fox would probably be the only guy that I think you could convince me to get a little crazy with, but I still just don't think the Spurs are built like that. And I think, Stephon Castle will probably anchor the point guard position there.
I wonder what the thought is if CP3 wants to come back.
I think it's an option for him. Yeah, I think for him, he's probably looking at a way to try to get himself probably back in one of the maybe LA markets, probably for comfort reasons, either to maybe retire a Clipper and have more of a legacy with maybe another playoff chase with them next year, or with the Lakers, and just be closer to family and, be ready to retire whenever you're ready to retire. I think that's the only thing that sucks with San Antonio is it's still it's a great opportunity. I think he was smart for taking it, for sure. It's going to keep him in the league, but I do think his goal is probably to get back on at least one of those teams, maybe even the Suns, maybe even a reclamation with the Suns in whatever version of that they look like, just so he's a little closer to being to the fam.
I don't think they can afford him.
Well, I think as long as he's on those vet mins, you know what I mean? It'll be tough for Chris to keep making good money in the NBA.
We're paying him 10.5, so.
Yeah, he got an awesome deal to go to San Antonio, and honestly, it would be just as funny if another team, whoever, Washington or somebody, they're probably too far away. It would be funny if that's just what Chris Paul did for the last couple of years of his career, is just take $10 million to go coach up some kids at a whatever fucking shitty team needs him. So, Spurs, I think they should buy in. I think it should make this more interesting for everybody, because you're going to be in the playoffs most likely.
They're 3 games back of the Mavs right now, I think, for the actual playoff spot, and they're right in there for the play-in, so.
And then speaking of ball hard Dallas Mavericks, injury bug is making this quite frustrating to predict. So there's still no Luka, still no Dante Exum. Kyrie Irving came back last night, probably a little too soon, felt like. Now Lively gets injured last night. That's not good.
For context, if you're just looking at last 10 games, them and Utah have the worst records in the West.
Yeah, I mean, what are they, 2 and whatever? I think
Three,
they beat
3-7.
Yeah, they beat the Lakers because the Lakers sort of slept through it. And the funny thing is there's been many of these games where it's like, oh, the Mavericks are going to pull this one out. Gritty Mavericks win.
They
And
just
then
don't
they
have.
just shit themselves.
Yeah, they don't have that guy without
No,
Luka and
yeah.
Kyrie out there.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take too much. I think there is good news here. To me, this is my stance still. Go big this season if you feel like the injuries are fine. If whatever the shit Luka's dealing with is really risky, and he could even, like, is risky already, no matter what he does, then don't necessarily do this. I think we already kind of all know Kyrie's is risky, and I think everyone's already sort of looking at the Kyrie injury and wondering, not just him rushing back and looking bad, but because the severity and the type and the history of his injury.
And he's just over the line age-wise where the bounce back isn't there.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of worry that Kyrie could be a ticking time bomb as far as the injuries go for this season. So you want to be careful there. But it does suck because I really do still like this team all in all. I think it's unfortunate what's gone down over this stretch, but I think it's brought great clarity to the fact that if you still want to use the Maxi Kleba and picks and Jaden Hardy potentially packages, that they will yield you something useful and interesting. But it would almost be more logical to potentially even think Daniel Gafford and his money could be packaged with Maxi Kleba and his money and picks and whatever. And then the Mavericks really make a swing that feels a lot more interesting moving forward.
And I mean, realistically, Oklahoma City is the one team I would say they probably can't catch unless, they go on just some crazy winning streak. But they're still right there. I mean, they're still only a couple games behind Houston. It's not even halfway through the season for the Mavs yet. So, I mean, there's a lot to not be worried about as long as like you said, the injuries, you don't know, but
you don't know what the injuries, and for them, it's very risky because of how it's gone so far.
But I don't think there's anyone in the West that even if they fell down to, if they stayed at 6 or 7, I don't think there's anyone they're too concerned about.
That's why I'm saying, the Lakers and the Warriors are going to do what they're going to do. You're going to have Sacramento's a little more interesting than they were. But ultimately, there's just a lot of teams that just don't put a lot of, Denver's starting to look more interesting. Can they make a move to actually get their team a little more deadly and potentially sneak back into the title race?
Was it the GM or the owner who just came out and did a big thing talking about Jamal Murray?
Oh, God, no. I don't know if I've heard this yet.
It was just support. It was being supportive.
Oh, good. Yeah, well, it's Michael Porter Jr. that would get the fuck out the door if they were to make the Jimmy Butler trade happen for them. I don't think that's possible either necessarily, but they could maybe be looking at other positions. But they've been really getting the most out of Russell Westbrook, and I think that's important for their team because they've got a lot of the other pieces to go there. I think they just need to trust Michael Porter Jr. He costs a lot of money, so he has to be reliable. And he has to be more good days than bad days. Aaron Gordon's had a lot of injury stuff this year. That doesn't help them. Their backup big got injured before the season even started. So that's
okay. It was Mike Malone who said,
"Oh, it was the coach."
Jamal Murray didn't pay himself $54 million. We did that as an organization because we believe in him.
Yeah, well, and because
I like that quote. It's just funny. It's just I've never heard anyone say that. He didn't pay himself $54 million.
It's also like really kind of they didn't either necessarily. There's sort of no option in those contracts with players at that level.
They didn't have to retain him.
They didn't have to retain him, but they basically had to retain him. So there really isn't a good answer for those folks, unfortunately. But yeah, that's the Dallas Mavericks lookout, and that's really it for the trade market that I wanted to break down. We will probably have a couple of trades to talk about as we go. I mentioned the Nick Richards one that happened just a few hours ago. That one's a pretty uninteresting move altogether. The only thing I think is interesting about it is they're still definitely going to move Yusuf Nurkic. He's not even with the team, I think, at this point. That's a good chunk of money. That's like $20 million. If they could break him into two players that are really useful and rotation players, then there's potentially a world where they don't even have to move Bradley Beal to make this whole thing work. But if they still can take the big swing and get Jimmy Butler and potentially so it'd be Jimmy Butler and like Alec Burks or one of the other similar cheaper players but useful players for Miami, I would think. So I still think there's a funny world where Phoenix can get this right and then come out of the trade deadline with like 4 guys that fit a lot more than they did, because they really did with Beal and Nurkic. It was one of the most, like, we all joked about the Russell Westbrook LA thing and how obvious it was that wasn't going to work from the beginning, but there was ways to talk yourself into that. The ultimate reality was financially that it was just going to cripple a team too much to pay for what they needed for the deficiencies. This one is an interesting and a very, very funny situation where I really think they might be able to squeeze out of it and get out of it. But I mean, Nurkic and Beal, just good Lord, that's a lot of money for 2 dudes who have just never once a day in their life been like, you know what I'm going to do today? Play defense.
You don't get paid to play defense.
Dude, it's bad.
Buckets.
And you could get into so much lore as far as all the hate.
Steph Curry.
Yeah, I'm sure that it's easy to blame everybody but themselves for looking like
I blame James Harden.
Did you see the Trae Young clip from Bradley Beal from like last night or the night before?
No.
He faked him out and had Bradley Beal looking around the court lost.
Like an and one mixtape, like it's NBA Street.
And it's just like $50 million, no trade clause.
Better or worse than Deshaun Watson?
Better?
Yeah, it's probably not guaranteed, right? 100%.
Oh, Bradley Beal? Oh yeah, Bradley Beal's getting all that money.
Is it? Yeah, okay.
Because as far as we know, he's not a creeper or a bad dude. He goes out there and hoops. He shows up to work every day.
Deshaun Watson's getting all that money. He's just is a bad dude.
Yeah. So I think
allegedly.
I think for winning games, it's about even. But when it comes to morality,
I'm talking about crippling your franchise. That was the question.
Crippling a franchise, I think that Deshaun Watson's going to be the winner all time eventually with that category. I don't know how the Browns get out of what they've done, except for trade Myles Garrett to the Cowboys for a 7th round pick.
They just have to accept being terrible for a while.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it for the hoops. The college foosball is the only thing that I would be moving into next, unless you guys have any other hoopla related talk.
I don't think I watched a second of basketball this week. That's not, well, I mean, live. I watched some Spurs highlights, but
I saw Christian Braun walk into the lounge that I work at. That's about it.
Nice. Did you cross him up, try to?
No, I was like, man, I've seen this guy a dozen times now and just loses his luster.
Yeah.
I was only ever worried about the time Rusty Greer was there. That was the only time I was nervous.
Rusty Greer.
Rusty.
I like when Rusty Greer comes in.
Yeah. So hoops.
Hoops is hooped.
All right. Join us in part 2 for something. We'll talk about something.
The college foosball.
The foosball.
Play outro.